it doesn't matter if you think K-State's headed in the right direction or would have the bullets in the chamber to really go toe-to-toe with Texas. Man, if Texas is going to play at all like what the noise around the program right now would suggest, K-State 100% has a chance to win on Saturday. 100%. I don't think you could find a more distracted opponent in the country right now for K-State to play. I was reading on the Austin American-Statesman earlier this afternoon a columnist, I believe it was Kirk Bowles, who already just outright in the column was saying Tom Herman sounds like a lame duck head coach. This is based on some quotes that he had at his weekly press conference this week. Already just declaring him a lame duck head coach. There were 4 to 5 different examples of questions that Herman had to deflect about his future and his relationship with the athletic director, Chris Del Conte, and they all said something to the effect of, we're just focused on going 1-0 and playing Kansas State. We're just focused on what we have to do in Manhattan. And when you are having to do that as a coach, give that same answer over and over again, man, you know the media is coming after you with pitchforks for something. And in this case, it's, hey, are you going to be on the outs because Urban Meyer's coming in here? It was very much, it came across to me very much like Bill Belichick. It is, we're on to Cincinnati. Tom Herman is on to Cincinnati, except not Cincinnati, on to Manhattan. We're on to Kansas State. Or if you prefer, it was also very much like the time that Mike Moustakas in 2014, before the Royals struck gold, was being questioned over and over about some of his struggles, and his only response was, Vargy pitched a great game. To every question that came to him from the media, Vargy pitched a great game. That's what Tom Herman was having to do to get the media off of his back. I cracked up at this. I absolutely cracked up at this. One, because of the absurdity of it, and two, because I can relate and I understand how this happened. Tom Herman was asked a question where it was phrased like this: is the die already cast for a coaching change? And so Tom Herman's response had to be, look, I'm not worried about dies being cast or anything like that. Sometimes we in the media can be some real jabronis, and that to me is a very jabroni thing to say in a very journalist way of stating something. Has the die already been cast on you not being the head coach here anymore? And I laugh and find the absurdity in it, while at the same time realizing I very much myself like to do that sometimes too. Sometimes you have to just flex the vocab and throw out like a random word that you very easily could have dumbed down, but you want to show how much you know. Sometimes you do that and you mispronounce it, which happened to me last week. All right, so it does happen. That is ridiculous. Is the die already cast for you not to be the head coach here anymore? But that's what Tom Herman is dealing with. There was even a question, Mitch, that came to Herman about if he was going to play Sam Ehlinger at quarterback on Saturday. All right, now why would that question be asked? Oh, because Texas media already figures, well, the season is done, so kick Ehlinger to the curb and play the young guy. Find out what you have. Like Sam Ehlinger, who's given everything to that program for 4 years and is a senior, the Texas media's response is, well, you're not making the Big 12 title game anymore, so just get rid of Ehlinger, play the young guy, play for the future. That's the environment in Austin right now. And that's not even taking into account the fact that Texas had 2 players opt out. An all Big 12 safety and a former 5-star player in Caden Stearns, and then a projected first or second round draft pick on the offensive line in Samuel Cosme. That happened back-to-back days. Cosme was Sunday, Stearns was Monday. 2 guys just quitting, pretty much like the Texas media has on the season. So, Mitch, I don't mean to blow a bunch of smoke up everybody's you-know-what here about K-State having a chance to win on Saturday, but I don't understand how you could be functioning in that environment if you're a player, if you're a coach in Austin, and not be distracted by it, not be bothered by it. Like if you're a player being bothered by these guys bailing and just looking around going like, what is the point? Everybody around me is telling me there's no point to the rest of the season and we shouldn't even be playing Sam at quarterback this weekend. What's the point? of coming into Manhattan and playing this game against 4-5 K-State?
First of all, for the media to ask questions like that takes some cojones. Like, I wanted on Monday to ask Mike Gundy on the teleconference how he gets away with always wearing his mask under his chin, but then I chickened out because I didn't want to completely sell out. I still have a career I'm trying to build here. These guys with Tom Herman maybe out the door, they have a reason to sell out because they're not going to have to worry about asking them questions for maybe just a couple of more weeks until the season is over. Now, I am not so confident like you are. You put it like you feel 100% confident or something like that. No, because K-State also has some issues they need to just get over themselves.
Whoa.
Go ahead.
No, nobody said 100% confident.
You threw that out there.
No, I did not say 100% confident. I just said I have some legitimate optimism here just because of everything Texas is having to deal with.
All right, well, first of all, I do want to look at it this way, though, because the two gentlemen that have opted out this weekend and yesterday, they are like true leaders. And I will agree with you. Like, if you're the team and you see two of your best players just all of a sudden just leave the team because they want to get ready for the draft, yeah, that's not cool. You know, you think you're being abandoned in a way because and I don't think it is a selfish reason, but I think it's a legit reason to just opt out now because you look for the NFL and you're looking at a bowl game, a meaningless bowl game. Stearns is going to be a draft pick. He's been the 2018 Freshman of the Year in the Big 12. And then the lineman you mentioned, Samuel Cosme, he's potentially a top 10 draft pick. He is projected as being a top 10 draft pick by multiple people. So Texas is losing a couple of leaders. But until Sam Ehlinger, I'll even throw out Brandon Ingram, until those guys maybe want to take another, maybe opt out for the rest of the season, maybe I'll start being more optimistic, but I'm just not quite there yet.
Well, there are other guys that have issues as well. So Texas's starting center is questionable with an ankle injury. They may be down two offensive linemen in this game then, for sure one, who's a first-round draft pick. And then a corner, Jalen Green, and running back Keontae Ingram are also somewhere between doubtful and questionable. This is according to the Austin American-Statesman. So if we're talking about just pure personnel issues, down an all Big 12 safety, down one of the best linemen in the Big 12, potentially down another starting lineman, potentially down arguably your best running back and a corner that plays a lot. All right? Now put yourself in the shoes of the rest of the players that are still here. Outside of Ehlinger, Sam Ehlinger is the one guy on that team I will not question. I'm sure he is going to show up and play hard. But there are a lot of other bodies on that team. And there are a lot of other people that move in different directions than Sam Ehlinger, which we saw earlier this year with the Eyes of Texas controversy. Ehlinger was like the only one that went back out there and did the hold the hook 'em up there where they played that song that had racist origins. Put yourself in the position of a player on this team. It's been a grind of a season for everybody during the pandemic. I mean, we've heard it all across the board from Kleiman and players here in Manhattan. Then if you're a player, you can't go out and enjoy the beauty of Austin like you typically would be able to. You can't go hang out on Dirty Sixth. You can't be out there. Otherwise, you're going to screw up the entire thing for your team. So you're stuck in Austin, not being able to enjoy it. You have this bright, shiny toy in your room that you just got for Christmas, and you can't play with it. You've suffered a lot of tough losses. You lost in 4 overtimes to your rival. That loss to Iowa State was just excruciating. And that was the difference between you having a shot to play for a Big 12 championship. This team has gone through the Eyes of Texas controversy, which was a huge deal in Austin and covered about half of the season. I mean, that was a controversy about this time-honored tradition and some of the players being very much against it because of the racist origins of it. And we know here in Manhattan how quickly that stuff can spark. But that situation really puts the Jaden McNeil thing to shame because it lasted way longer and it was about legitimate university tradition as opposed to just one punk. Now the media won't shut up about your coach. You just saw 2 starters bail on your team, and the game this week ain't exactly that exciting. You're going to play 4-5 K-State in Manhattan, Kansas in December. So I ask you, Mitch, if you're the typical 4 or 5-star country club player on Texas's team in Austin, sitting there with all of this on your plate, how motivated would you be?
John, you telling me these guys aren't playing for better bowl prizes and better bowl gifts?
That is exactly what I'm telling you. Yes, they do not care.
Man, we're talking the difference between maybe a cheap recliner to a PlayStation 5. That's the differences we're talking about here, John. So basically, you're hyping this up for being a big heartbreaker. Again, because think back of the Oklahoma State game. Tyler Wallace is hurt; he's out. They're starting one of the starting safeties is out. He was a first team All Big 12 a year ago, missing a couple of other players. And K-State was the better team that day, but they found a way to lose that game, and they let Oklahoma State get away with one. Again, I'm not worried about Texas. I am worried about K-State. Texas may be coming in wounded. I'm not a believer when you still have 2 games left and, okay, you're not playing for a Big 12 championship. There's nothing left to play for. I don't really believe in the team's not going to be hyped to play a football game. They're lucky to be playing a football game anyway. They're lucky that COVID hasn't wiped out their season. They're from a big city. They've caught some breaks. So why wouldn't you be pumped to go out and play a football game? K-State has a lot of their own issues to get over, and let's not act like K-State has been playing good enough to still go out there and beat Texas. They have to get better on their own. I'm worried about K-State getting over their own issues and making sure they can win this game, being prepared to win this game against Texas.
I think 2 of the last 3 efforts that K-State has put out there would be good enough to beat distracted Texas. I think Baylor would have been, and I definitely think Oklahoma State would be if you get distracted Texas. I'm not discounting the issues that K-State has to deal with. But regardless of those issues, we've seen this team beat Oklahoma, beat Texas Tech, who, might I remind you, should have beaten Texas if not for an onside kick. TCU, who did beat Texas. We've seen K-State play with everybody except West Virginia and Iowa State this year in the league. There's no reason that they can't compete with a very distracted Texas team. I don't think K-State is going to magically solve all of these issues, but I think Texas can absolutely play down to K-State's level in Manhattan. I think that's 100% on the table here. This could very much be a just punt on the rest of the season. Let's get out of here and move on with the rest of our lives Texas team. I think you're going to see it across college football here the last couple of weeks, some of these games that are being made up on the 12th and the 19th and all of that. And I definitely think there's a better than 50-50 shot you see that from Texas. Their last 2 games are K-State and Kansas, 4-5 and then 0-for. That does not get a Texas player excited in general. And then you've removed the big carrot that they had at the end, which was still trying to get into the Big 12 championship game. Very much think that it is possible.